God, and I hate that name so much. This one is my
Sinew and
least.
Steel.
This one's my least favorite name of like, oh, this is my sword of steel. Like, no, Sherlock, it's a sword.
I didn't think about that. That's really funny, dude. Folks of the internet, welcome to another episode of the MTG Thoughtcast, a Commander podcast hosted by these two brothers. My name's Joseph. I'm one of your hosts here, and across the screen, or somewhere across your ears, is John. How you doing, John?
A cut above the rest, I'm here as well. Welcome to the MTG Thoughtcast.
Yes, John, do you want to tell the good people why you made a cut pun today?
Oh, I'll slice right to the topic idea. We're swords today. We're doing the swords. It's so cool. But
Yeah.
what else do we got to tell them about before we get started with our topic today?
Well, before we get talking about Sword of John and Joseph, we have to mention that if you want to be a part of all the discussion about what your favorite sword for Commander might be, you can join our Discord, linked down below. It's totally free. We hang out there all the time, play some Commander games, brew some decks. I want to hear about your favorite swords down there. While you're there, if you want to leave us a comment as well about your favorite swords for Commander, maybe your favorite story involving a sword in Commander, would love to hear it. Let's get some stories down in the comments. You can leave likes, you can subscribe. All these are totally free ways to support the channel. If you want to support the channel even further and you're looking for some new deck boxes, playmats, dice boxes perhaps, that involve magnets and portability and folding and all these lovely things with some beautiful finishes on them, you can check out our friends over at Heavy Play. Sponsors of the show, shout out Heavy Play. You can use code MTGThoughtcast at checkout for 10% off of your first order, or go to heavyplay.com/MTGThoughtcast. Genuinely, I'm literally looking at my playmat here right now that's got my dice box magneted to it and my deck box magneted to it, and it's so lovely. That it's so excellently done. I would not try to sell you something that I was not genuinely a fan of. 10% off at Heavy Play. We get a kickback from that. You support the channel, you get new deck boxes. It's a win-win for everybody. Go ahead and check them out.
Hey, it is the swords. So, Magic as a whole, some of our favorite collections of cards are cycles of things, either like in a set as a whole, big splashy things over at Mythic. Us Commander people, we love a Mythic legendary cycle in a set or whatever. And Magic has done long terms of like cards that have a shared sort of skeleton to them, while they have differing like names and abilities and card types and things of that nature. But I don't think it goes without saying that one of the game's most iconic and truthfully one of its longest runnings to finally get complete was the Swords of X and Y.
Yeah, definitely. So the swords are 3 mana equipment. So it's artifact equipment that have an equip cost of 2. This is true for all of these that we're going to be talking about today. There's 11 total, right, John? Kind of?
11
bordered swords.
Correct. Yes.
They give protection from 2 things. They give a +2/+2 bonus, and they do 2 things whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player. This is true for the entire cycle. So all of the 2 things that you get protection from for most of these is going to be 2 different colors, and then the abilities of the swords usually relate to the colors that you get protection from.
Right.
So that is that's what a sword of is. You can refer to them as sort of X and Y, sort of push and shove. It's a lot of these things. Today, I think we're going to be going through all of the swords in release order chronologically, and we will be giving them a rank between F and S. And I believe, at least in my going through all of them, I've got the whole spectrum covered. So we'll be talking about what they do, what their grade is in relation to playing them in a Commander deck.
Right.
Actually, before we start all of that, we should talk about what protection is, because that's something that doesn't get used a ton anymore, but we're going to be talking about that a lot today. So protection The acronym you can use to remember what protection does is the DEBT acronym, is DEBT. That's cannot be damaged, cannot be enchanted or equipped, cannot be blocked by, or cannot be targeted by anything that you have protection from. So it's kind of split into both protection and an evasion. So the protection side means that like if you have protection from black, you can't get like downfall, the hero's downfall or anything by anything because it's black. It also means that that creature that has protection from black can't be blocked by anything that has black in it. It can't be damaged by anything that is the black color identity, and it can't even be targeted by abilities or any of it. So that's the acronym for protection. So as we go through, I definitely will be talking about sort of the protection and the evasion side and how valuable those are in Commander. That's protection. John, do you want to start us on our first sword? Tell us what it does, what it is, when it came out, all the goodies.
Sure. Do you actually know what sword that is off dome? Do you know which one came first?
Oh, I want to say it's Light and Shadow.
You're in the correct wheelhouse. Yes.
Yes.
The original Dark Steel, which was part of the original Mirrodin block back in 2004, was the home to our first two swords we're going to talk about. In this case, because they both came out in the same set, this one will go by alphabetical in that case. So our first and probably the most iconic of them all, Sword of Fire and Ice.
Sophie.
7 additional prints since this original one, averaging in the realm of about $30 to $40 a pop. Sword of Fire and Ice gives +2/+2 protection from red and blue. When the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, Sword of Fire and Ice deals 2 damage to any target, and you draw a card.
Very nice. Very nice. Do you want to start? We start rating it now? Because I've got a hot take here.
I'm probably in the same boat as you, to be perfectly honest. I was about to open up the statement with like the fact of mentioning that, like, oh, Sword of Fire and Ice. When somebody mentions these Sword of Cycles, Sophie here is usually one of the most iconic as far as like constructed competitive people want to talk about. But my opinion as well, and I'm imagining you're probably leaning in the same thing. I don't think Sword of Fire and Ice is really good in Commander.
I think it's fine. I've rated this as a C. This feels like middle of the road because, like, let's talk about all the things that it does. So, again, talking about the protection and the evasion sides from blue and red. So, protection from red is really good because it means that it can't be damaged by those things. So, I try to think of the most iconic things that the protection would save you from. So, like, protection from red saves you from Blasphemous Act. So that's incredible. That's like really good. We like red does a ton of targeting. It does a ton of damage. It's got some big beefy creatures. So like, I feel like the protection there is fine. I don't really care about protection from blue, if I'm being honest. I don't think that, if anything, I actually almost feel like protection from blue is a bit of a downside because then you can't use any of your protection spells, like your flicker spells or anything like that.
It was something I was going to chime in with you when you were talking about the protection thing, and that most ironically, more than anything, because we're talking about the swords, protection on a creature or a permanent of any kind is a double-edged sword.
Ah, yes, very nice, because you can't do the thing either.
Correct. That limits your capability of targeting that thing as well. So that's where the sort of like thought process comes into which of these do you actually want to play in your deck? Like, are you a deck that is these colors? You'll have to keep in mind that anything you have this kind of thing and all of these swords equipped to, a portion of your deck will now no longer be a valid target to the thing that's equipped to it, especially when you are the Spellslinger colors like Sword of Fire and Ice is.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, think of like Thassa Deep Dwelling can no longer target this thing, which I guess you wouldn't want to do that anyway because you would have to re-equip the sword the whole thing. Again, it's just clunky. Like, I also like to think whenever we're talking about these swords and the abilities that it has on combat damage, I like to think of it as it's casting 2 of these spells for free for you. And like, what's the mana value equivalent of those 2 things? So dealing 2 damage to any target, that's a shock. That is a single mana 1 pip spell, and it just staples a cantrip onto it. Like it almost is like it's casting Electrolyze without the ability to like split the damage around. Which I think is just fine. Like, you're going to snipe a Birds of Paradise, you're going to snipe an Elvish Mystic, or you're just going to throw 2 extra damage to the face, and then you just draw a card for it, which, again, card draw is good. It'd be really hard for me to rank anything below. Like, I could not give a failing grade to anything that just draws a card. But you'd have to hit the person with it, and I feel like protection from blue and red is not like incredibly relevant evasion, whereas I feel like green and black have some of the best creatures. So having evasion from blue and red, I just don't think is really going to help you smack in as often as another color's protection might. But I think Fire and Ice is maybe the perfect one to start on because it feels super middle of the road to
Middle
me.
of the ground. Yep.
It's just it also like again, if you're playing, oh, this is relevant to talk about. All of these cards are colorless in identity, so you don't have to play Sword of Fire and Ice in a blue and red deck. It just gives protection from blue and red, but is an entirely colorless card. So you can play like a mono green deck is somewhere where I'd be looking to play Sword of Fire and Ice in because green has a lot of trouble drawing cards. So being able to just staple card draw onto something that's sort of off color is a use case for this. So I would not say it's a failing grade, but I'm just not excited about Sword of Fire and Ice in Commander.
Yep, I'm in about in the same regard to you, right? The color protection this provides is very mid at best. The ability it does just 2 damage and a card for the investment you go into this. I feel like this is one of the iconic swords that is starting to show its age. That this was designed 20 years ago.
Definitely. Well, it
But
also was it was modern playable. Like that's where a
it
lot
was
of its notoriety came from is like standard and I mean, God, it nearly got banned in standard because this was like the time when like Jace the Mind Sculptor, like the sword and the like hawk combo was kind of going. I forget the name of that deck,
Cobblade,
but yeah, Koble like would play Sword of Fire and Ice in it. So
right?
I think its notoriety is important and is a bit outdated.
Yeah. All right, so to not linger on any further, overall, Sword of Fire and Ice, about a middle of the ground, we'd say about a C, give or
Get
take.
that thing a
Yep,
C? Perfect.
looks good to me. You were correct though. In Darksteel, in the year of 2004, Sword of Light and Shadow was our friend who accompanied Sword of Fire and Ice. Gives +2/+2 protection from white and black. Whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you gain 3 life, and you may return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
Okay. Tell me what you think about
Uh,
this one, John. You start this time.
Sure. As a whole, Light and Shadow has been printed 9 additional times and averages right around about a $10 to $20 price range, typically. Um, I of the two from Darksteel, I actually like Light and Shadow a good bit more. The creature recursion part on that is what I feel like is the strongest part of this. The
Mhm.
gaining 3 life is kind of neat as well, and to opposite of Sword of Fire and Ice, these are some of the standout protection
Yes.
colors.
This is
Absolutely.
excellent protection colors.
When you think targeted removal in Commander, you've got Path to Exile, you've got Swords to Plowshares, you've got Generous Gift, you've got this new Emergency Eject, you've got Hero's Downfall and Cut Down, and the other ones that hit like legendary creatures and non-legendary creatures and other
Yeah,
black targeted removal. Like white and black is the targeted removal
for
colors,
sure.
Vindicates and Utter Ends and things of that nature. So this sword in and of itself that gives you protection from all of those things and is able to recur you back all those other creatures that previously died to said spot removal. I very highly value Sword of Light and Shadow over the other parts of this that it does. Like I'm 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 setting Light and Shadow probably at like an A rank, to be perfectly honest. I really, really like what this one does.
Yeah, I've got it at B. So I think we're kind of right about there. It's sort of an A minus or a B plus somewhere in there. I think that like you said, the protection is absolutely excellent. I think this is the premier protection colors. Like you said, for all of those reasons. The evasion on it, I think, is pretty good. Again, when we're talking about colors and what kind of creatures you're gonna be able to sneak through, I like to think of the iconic creatures of each of those colors. So this sort of gives you like evasion from angels and demons, which are
And
good to get
zombies
around. And zombies, yeah, white and black both go
and
wide
soldiers.
with tokens. Yeah, 100%. So being able to sneak past all of these chump blockers is excellent. So I think that white and black is maybe the best of the protection colors that you could be asking for. Again, the life gain is mid. If we're talking about spells that this is casting, it's throwing a healing salve down, which is a single mana gain 3 life. But it's also doing like a Gravedigger, so like or whatever the spell that's attached to Gravedigger would be. So it's at least
Unearth,
3.
which is also a
Yeah,
black. Mhm.
right. So it's like a you get 2 mana worth of value, but like you said, you're playing swords, you're playing equipment in decks with creatures. So as creatures die, you're going to be having them recurred with this here Sword of Light and Shadow. So this sort of works in the deck that wants it really, really well. And yeah, like recursion is card advantage. So don't forget, like it is equivalent to drawing a card, and it is sometimes even better because you get to pick what that card is that you're drawing back. If you've got like a selfless spirit that you're sacrificing is in the graveyard, and then you swing in with this, it's indestructible. It hits. You just get that thing back to your hand, recast it. Now you've created a loop just with this sword and a sacrifice creature. So I love Sword of Light and Shadow. Maybe I'm upping my rank. Maybe it is an A. Honestly, I think
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think this is one of the better ones. I think this is an A.
Yeah, and like truthfully, like even though we kind of disregarded it a little bit, the gaining 3 life is also not like negligible, right? Like basically
Yeah, it's fine.
since the time this one came out, we've got a lot of different commander strategies now that care about you gaining life during your turn, how much you've gained during your turn, you know.
That's right.
The immediate one I think of off dome is like we had not too terribly long back the Lord of the Rings Hobbits decks that cared all the time about how much life you were gaining during a turn. This kind of sword would be perfect for a deck like that,
100%.
especially attached to like an evasive friend like Frodo who was getting in all the time anyways.
And giving him protection from white and black. Like that's good. Like these are good evasion colors. So excellent on Light and Shadow. I will up my rank to an A. We share that is an absolute slammer. That is an A.
Excellent. All right. So the Supercycle that we are now talking about here, it took a break for a good long while. We didn't see the next card, Sword of Body and Mind, until technically 2010, but it was also in that realm of like 2011-ish as well, because Sword of Body and Mind was sort of a weird one. Do you actually know a little bit the history about this one, Joseph? What set did it come out
No.
from?
Oh, it came out in, was it like Zendikar or something like that?
No, this is all Mirrodin. These ones are all
Oh,
Mirrodin.
okay.
So Sword of Body and Mind had its first traditional print in Scars of Mirrodin, but a cool thing that Magic used to do long back in the day is they had these box products that came to stores called From the Vaults. And
Oh,
for
interesting.
for a little while, these products showcased premiere versions of cards that had not been printed yet. So technically, Sword of Body and Mind was first printed in From the Vault Relics and
Wow.
then was in Scars of Mirrodin 3 months later.
That's interesting.
And so now we have the actual sword itself, Sword of Body and Mind. Pro green, pro blue. When the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you create a 2/2 green wolf creature token, and the defending player mills 10 cards.
This is an F, bro.
This is a stinker. You think so?
This is an absolute F.
All
Okay.
right.
I think that the evasion is totally fine. Again, we talked about how I'm not a huge fan of protection from blue. Green is going to get you through some creatures. That's fine. So it's we're talking about this is largely going to be you're sneaking past some green
This
creatures.
is for combat evasion more than just protection from like spells and things of that nature.
Exactly. So the two things that it does is make a 2/2 wolf, which is fine. Like that is, I'm not like begging for that. And then it mills that player 10 cards, which is an upside usually for your opponent. I think it's pretty rare that you're going to come across a deck that would not want 10 cards in their graveyard. I think if this was like mill half their library, that would be a bit more impactful. But like I'm like thinking through most of my decks, and there's only like 2 of them where I wouldn't be like thrilled to just get 10 cards in the graveyard for free. That's just too much of an upside in most decks where like you're okay, so you're 5 mana total investment to get what I think are 2 of the worst protection from colors. Because again, green is not really playing removal spells. Like you might have your random like fight spell or your random bite or whatever. But
Mhm.
that's so rare to come by. I mean, green is also, they're just going to be playing like neutralize or naturalize and like destroying the sword. Like,
Right.
so the sword does not have protection from green. So it's the worst protection colors. And then a 2/2 wolf that's like, who cares? And also generally fueling your opponent's strategy for them for free. There is almost no world where I would ever play this.
Would you have a different opinion of this sword if the mill was a target player?
100%, because I would absolutely, it would nearly be an A if you could target yourself and mill those 10 cards.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm in the same kind of boat with you. The other, one thing I'm thinking about as well, because like when you're equipping like a sword onto a creature or whatever, you probably are in that boat of like playing other forms of like combat evasion style things or other pieces that increase the power of that said creature you're doing. And like blue and green are some of the strongest colors for +1/+1 counters, right? The
Yeah.
green will be putting counters on, and blue would be trying to proliferate those counters. You've now given this creature protection from both of those things. That's not going to
Yes.
do you any good whatsoever.
Not for me, this one.
I can think of
F.
like exclusively this being cool for maybe like the Gaunty that does like theft stuff. That'd be a really cool home for a sword like this. But outside of that, yeah, I'm kind of in the
Yeah.
same thing as you. But I don't think a fail. I think this is like D, like bottom of
You
the
don't think
barrel.
this is, you think there's a worse one than this?
Um, Probably I'd say so. Like, it just I don't think this is stone cold unplayable, right? Because like all of these swords have an aspect to them of like the protection colors that it is doing. While I was just saying about the like counters thing being a downside for this for you as the person who has this equipped onto, like I think they all still have practical use in that regard, and you can build around that. Like if you are doing a mill centered strategy, this probably is one of your most repeatable sources of mill against a particular opponent, I'd say. But
Yes,
those are
but it's
so
only 10 cards a turn, which
true.
again, if it's not closing out the game, you're also attacking them with this creature. Like you're going to do their life total in before you mill them out with this. So it's purely only just like grabbing a chunk of their library and putting it into their graveyard, which, like I said, if you're playing against the average deck, that is either an upside or is neutral.
Yeah, like I said, I think I'm still like at about like a low D or
Sure.
some or, not
I'm
not
standing
an
by F.
not an outright failure of a sword, but definitely the lowest we've talked about so far. Body of Mind itself, by the way, has had 5 printings since its original and averages in the realm of about $15 to $20.
Yeah. All of these are like somewhat expensive just because of the name on them. Like these are name brand swords and fetch some premium just for it. They're iconic. Like it's some of the best of the best.
Well, I was gonna say, probably talking about iconic, we move on to our next one, printed from 2011 in Mirrodin Besieged, Sword of Feast and Famine,
Yeah. Do you want me to read
with
this one?
11 additional prints past this one and averages a pretty steady commanding price point of about $25 a copy, no matter which one you're buying from.
Yep.
You can
So
read it if
sort
you
of
want. Yeah, go ahead.
Sort of Feast and Famine gives the equipped creature +2/+2 and protection from black and from green. And then whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card and you untap all lands you control. Uh,
Are we both just gonna be in the boat and say that this is the S
S tier,
tier?
dude. This is absolute S tier. If we're talking about like again, we don't need to harp on how like the protection colors like work. Black is, we've agreed, one of the better colors to have protection from. Green is a fine one for evasion. So you have good evasion, you have good protection from targeted removal. The discard is fine. I feel like the discard is like mid to whatever. Like it is useful for sure. Like it's resource denial, but that untap all of your lands, you never get that for less than like 4 mana on a spell, and especially not one that's going to do it every turn. Like we're looking at Wilderness Reclamation at like the closest, and that's a 4 mana enchantment that this just like does on its own. This is unbelievable. I think this is if it's not the best sword, it is in the same category as the best of the swords.
As far as commander playability is concerned, because
Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
anything that can give you extra mana back in our multiplayer format here, even if you're not using that mana. And the thing that you were talking about as well is the fact that that all these abilities, even though that they read in a sense that the thing that they do is correlated to it's one of the two colors that the sword is, you can play this anywhere. So like, are
Yeah.
you a spell slinger deck that wants to cast spells during your turn and then hold back your mana for the off turn because you've now just gotten in with your looter Ilkor? Great. Now you get to do that just for
Yeah.
free.
At minimum, it's like the discard is annoying for your opponents. Like you just shoot at whoever has like, I don't know, actually I'm curious about this philosophy wise. When you have the option to make one player discard a card, do you go after the player who has the most cards or the player who has the least cards in their hand?
I think again, I think that is dependent on what kind of deck they are playing, because typically speaking, somebody who probably has lesser cards in hand is probably fine with all the things that they've played or milled or died being in their graveyard.
Yeah. I think I typically go for the lowest number of cards in hand because the difference between 7 cards and 6 cards is pretty negligible, but the difference between 2 cards and 1 card is huge. That's half your hand at that point. So I kind of rank it based on that. But yeah, this is insane. This is absolutely nuts. And yeah, like exactly like you were saying, this can go in a mono white deck that doesn't typically get access to like untapping your lands, or like my Galazeth Prismari deck that wants to be playing a bunch of spells off turn, but I also want to be playing creatures and also want to be playing equipment. This is insane in that deck. So this is absolutely S tier. I think you and I are in complete agreement about Sword of Feast and Famine here.
Yep, it's one of the most iconic of Commander for a reason. It's one of the strongest that it does. And now
Nice.
we move on to I actually probably bet this is going to be the one that's going to be the controversial between the two of us, I imagine, because I probably have different opinions about this one. Also from the year of 2011, from New Phyrexia, Sword of War and Peace.
Yep. Let me
Printed,
read this one for us.
yeah, printed with 7 prints and usually averages around about $7 to $10 a copy.
Gotcha. So Sword of War and Peace gives +2/+2 and protection from red and from white. And then whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, Sword of War and Peace deals damage to that player equal to the number of cards in their hand, and you gain 1 life for each card in your hand. Um,
So, do you want my thoughts first, or do you have an
yeah,
opinion
yeah. I
first?
feel like you've got an opinion on this.
All right, so here's my opinion on this card. This is the sword that is underrated the most for
Sure.
Commander, I feel like. Everyone dunks on Sword of War and Peace about just being the absolute poop when it comes to the combat damage trigger that it does. But I would like to make the case of the fact that because this are, again, in the same vein of Sword of Light and Shadow, some of the strongest removal protection colors that it offers, and built in today's kind of Commander economy where you always have access to be able to get extra cards into your hand, and everybody else is also playing with as many cards as possible that they have in hand. This is so out the gate. This is a sword that's an A rank for me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I love this one. This is so much fun. I have multiple copies of this one in multiple different decks that are completely different colors off of another. Just everything that this one is able to do, you like it gets slammed down, and people just don't expect this one to be coming around. In Commander, everyone's expecting these really strong, powerful ones like the Sword of Feast and Famine to untap your lands, and some of these other ones we're going to get to later about like, oh, they blink and ramp, they let you cast free spells off of the top or whatever, and things of that nature. But the just being able to hit somebody and dome them for whatever they're holding up in their hand, of which, if you are playing against the right players, could be removal that's not going to be able to target anything that is equipped to this sword itself. Like, underrated gem. This is my hot take on Sword of War and Peace.
I see. So I had this one ranked as a C. For the reasons of, like you said, it's got good protection and decent evasion. If we're talking about like dragons and angels being the thing that it gets through, those are good things to get past. I do think the trigger is conditional, and I think you at least have to agree with me on that. That like picking the right person, sometimes you might not want to be attacking the person who has the most cards in hand because they've, you might want to look at somebody else, but you're like, well, my sword wants to go after this person, so I kind of have to go that way if I want to get value off the trigger. So I think it pushes you in directions that might feel clunky. I do though love playing a good wheel. I love Wheel of Fortune. I love Windfall. I love putting extra cards in players' hands, and Sword of Wheel and Wheel. Sword of War and Peace is a good way to punish that. Like
Sword of Wheel and Punishment.
Sort of Wheel and Punishment is what this one actually is. So yeah, I think I'm comfortable bumping this up to a B. I don't think this is an A. I think that this is there's decks that it is absolutely good in, and I think that I mean, even again, if we're talking about the case where you've played a Wheel of Misfortune or something, and you've paid 3 life, or everyone's paid 3 life or whatever to wheel their hands, and then you get to smack somebody and just deal 7 damage to them because they now have a fresh 7 in hand, and then you gain 7 life. Like, that really offsets the game. It just requires a few other pieces to keep it going. So I think that B is, I'm pretty comfortable B minus ish for this. But you seem to like this card a lot, so I understand why you would rank it as an A.
So let me tell you one of my favorite game examples using this sword in specific, and I'm curious to see what your opinion is about this kind of thing. We have not talked in depth much about like the fact that, these are on combat damage triggers. You do get to do a cool sort of like spell effect based on the color set that these are. Do you think any of these get much better when you account for double strike?
Oh, significantly so. Yeah, if you can throw double strike or extra triggers on any of these, they all become really good. But again, you're playing into exactly what I'm saying, which is all of what makes this one good requires other abilities and requires other things on the board. Whereas like sort of Feast and Famine is like put this on a creature and then start to take over the game. So I don't think I don't think it comes close to the best of them, but I think of like the mid swords, it's the best of the mid ones.
Yeah, okay. I mean, like, I live in a world scenario where like a sword like this is regularly equipping onto like 3-drop 2/2s with double strike, that the sword is now giving it +2/+2. It's now connecting the creature itself for a total of 8, and then its
Yeah.
trigger is going off for 5 and 5 each
Well,
time. Like,
and again, the
that'll kill somebody.
protection is excellent on this one because if you've got a 4/4 with double strike that's going to deal like an extra 14 damage to somebody, they're going to want to Swords to Plowshares it, but they can't because it's pro white.
I will still go ahead and stand by this. This
Yeah,
one is
for
my
sure.
underrated gem of the collection here. It's not an S because I agree on your sort of like it's picky combat scenario. It obviously does almost nothing for you if you're empty-handed. I get
Right.
that. But, for me, War and Peace is my special child. I
I
love
like it.
this one
This is
so
your
much.
favorite of them. I like it.
It
I also
is.
think
It's
like if the protection colors were different on this, it would be worse. Like if this was on like the protection from blue and green and it had that ability, it would be a much worse card. But protection
sure.
from red and white on this is excellent.
Mhm. So
I
now that
love
we've
it, man.
set the bar really high, let's dip it down a little bit.
Yeah.
The swords after the Scars of Mirrodin block took a very long break for a decent long while. We did not see these next two until the first Modern Horizons in 2019, which is a statement that I have now just said out loud that we have lived almost
Oh,
5-something years on from Modern Horizons.
yep. That's
Blech.
true. Was that Hogak? Was that
That was
the first
Hogak.
Modern Horizons? Wow, dude.
Yep.
Hogak was the precursor to COVID. You heard it here first.
There's a domino chain here of
Yeah.
Hogak releasing
Wuhan? No, Hogak.
So, Modern Horizons 1 featured 2 brand new Sword ofs. The first one we'll talk about is Sword of Sinew and Steel. Printed twice since its original, it averages about $10 a copy. Protection from black and red, and when the creature deals combat damage to a player, you destroy up to 1 target planeswalker and up to 1 target artifact.
This is dude. This is horrible.
This is no, can you tell we were living off of the high of War of the Spark when this one was printed?
Oh my god, yeah. We were just in like they printed a set that had 36 planeswalkers in it, and they're like, how do we fix this? I know, sinew and steel. That's what we're gonna do.
God, and I hate that name so much. This one is my
Sinew and
least
steel.
This one's my least favorite name of like, oh, this is my Sword of Steel. Like, no, Sherlock, it's a
I
sword.
didn't think about that. That's really funny, dude. Yeah, I think like the protection on this is fine. Again, you get protection from black, which is helpful. I think that if I'm ranking them, I'm going like white is the best protection, then black is shortly below it, red is somewhere around there, and green and blue are the worst of them in that range. So you're getting decent protection on this. I think if you're like have a lot of Rakdos decks in your pod, like this is probably good protection on a sword. But
Yeah,
like,
and I
oh
mean,
my god, those triggers are so random.
yeah. I suppose, like, let's go. So here's some positives. So, like, yeah, like you said, the pro black, pro red, that is also like in that same vein of light and shadow. Those are very heavy removal colors. So, like, yeah, this kind of thing for that aspect is great. What I also do love about this is that, like, unlike all these other swords that we have just talked about previously, that the trigger ability that comes from this one here does not have to be directly targeted at whoever you just swung at. This is the first one
Yeah.
that when you go and swing it at somebody, you can target something else, which is relevant because, like, sometimes if you're looking to get a permanent or a threat off of somebody else's board, they're set up in such a way that you can't hit them anyways. So being able to go pick on somebody else who's got a weaker board state to then solve the problem over there, that is cool. That's a good aspect that this card has.
Definitely. I think like again, what you have to take into consideration with cards like this that makes me not like it even more is that the sword itself does not have protection. It grants the protection to the creature. So
Mhm.
like a lot of planeswalkers destroy artifacts. Like in white, in green, in red. Like there's plenty that just like one of their abilities is destroy an artifact. So like all they have to do is throw this thing down, nuke your sword, and then like your gotcha spell against the planeswalker deck doesn't do anything anymore because it's gone. Um, I mean, I do like. Don't get me wrong. I love a Trigon Predator, which is like a thing that destroys an artifact or an enchantment whenever it hits. I think the value from that is the picking from an artifact or an enchantment in magical Christmas land where you get to pick off a planeswalker and an artifact with this, it becomes good. But I just don't think that case is going to be super relevant a lot of the time. So this is sitting in the F category for me as well.
I think this is my fail as well,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. It is definitely one of the weakest of the cycle that we have talked about. Does still have practical use. Don't mishear either of us. Like, if you are a Sinew and Steel enjoyer, excellent. We appreciate and love you all the more for it. Tell us about it. Tell us the fun combat scenario that you have set yourself up in where Sinew and Steel is the absolute nuts. But to me,
I refuse to hear any arguments that this is an S tier. So don't even try, okay?
well, let's move on to our other one then from Modern Horizons, the Sword of Truth and Justice.
Okay.
Protection from white and blue, and when the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, then proliferate. It's very
I
sick.
like this one a lot.
This
I
this
think
one
that this
has
is very good.
this one has had 4 prints as well alongside this original one here, and averages in the realm of about $25 to $30.
Yeah. So I think you're getting good protection on this. Anything that's got protection from white on it, I'm in. That immediately bumps up the ranks for me because of its protection. I think the evasion's fine. I don't think that again with white, you've got evasion from chump blocking tokens. In blue, I think that's the worst of the evasion ones, just because blue doesn't play into a ton of creatures. You just get like, they can't unsummon your creature. You know, like there's some value to protection from blue, but I think it's one of the worst ones.
I was gonna say against somebody like you who loves a good mana war, like that protection from
God,
blue
I
is definitely
love a
so
bounce
cool.
spell. Except it doesn't even give you protection from like the spell, like the Aether Spell Bomb, which is my favorite bounce spell.
Right.
That's colorless. So
Yeah, it's a colorless source, but
anyway, I think that the protection from white is the really valuable piece here. You get decent evasion on it. And then if you're in a deck that you're like let's say you're playing a Planeswalker deck and you're taking advantage of that proliferate, this is excellent. Anything that proliferates as it hits, like that's Thrumming Bird, things like that become super valuable. So being able to staple that onto whatever creature, it's also like Planeswalker decks make tokens a lot. So like
yep.
you don't even need to be playing a ton of like super valuable creatures that you need to keep around. You could just play this in your Planeswalker deck with your like Elspeth Sun's champion that just makes 1/1 tokens, or you're the Wandering Emperor that makes the 2/2 with double strike samurai. Like that's insane. If you throw this on the Wandering Emperor's samurai with double strike, nutty. So that's excellent. And then even if you're not taking advantage of the proliferate, this at minimum puts a +1/+1 counter on itself and then proliferates that +1/+1 counter and that'll just grow a threat. Like again, we're talking about throwing this on the samurai with double strike. It goes from a 2/2 with double strike to it becomes a 4/4 when you equip the thing, and then it becomes a 6/6 after it hits. Like that's crazy, dude. Like that will
Yep.
end the game quickly. So I think that this is like niche enough to not really get like a super high grade for me. Like, I have this ranked at a B. But
I'm right about the same.
I think that it's excellent. Like, I think it's a very good card.
Yeah, I think like the fact that it self-sustains itself, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously all these cards like they do a cool thing, but none of them really compound in the same workable way like this one does, right?
For sure.
Like we backpedal a second to like Sword of Feast and Famine. Like it's cool that you make the opponent discard a card and untap your lands, but those two components are not really working hand in hand together
Right.
as compared to this one where it is directly itself doing something that no matter what kind of strategy you are doing, like you had mentioned about at minimum, it's throwing a counter onto something you control, including the thing itself that it's equipped to, and
For
then
sure.
you just get to choose the proliferate, which again, the proliferate works on all kinds of counters that are either on permanents you control, like 1/1 counters and lore counters and ability counters and things like that, but then also
Yeah.
the counters that you have given out to players like yourself, like experience counters or energy counters or poison counters.
Well, let's also talk about like what kind of deck would you want to play this in? It's a creature deck that deals with +1/+1 counters, or a planeswalker deck that deals with like loyalty counters. Both of those decks are weak to control, which this gives you protection from blue and from white, the two biggest control colors. So like you're just saving your best creature and then stapling this thing that kills the control player way faster. So
I want to play.
I'm
I want
deep
to
in
play.
here.
I want to play this with Finn the Fangbearer.
Oh
Honestly,
my god. Yeah,
this looks so
stapling
much fun.
proliferate onto that?
This looks so much fun with like
Goodness.
Finn or those other types of cards. What was that new thing? The Virulent Silencer from Edge of Eternities.
Yeah, the one that gives the
The
non-token artifact creatures when they deal damage poison too. Dude, if we're talking about ones that go excellently on double strike cards, it's this one. Because on first strike, it would hit +1/+1 counter, proliferate, and then now it's got those two counters for regular damage. So, like, again, if we're talking about the case where you have the Wandering Emperor, you put the thing on, it's a 4/4. The first time it hits, it will get the counter, become a 6/6, and then it hits for 6 in regular damage and becomes an 8/8 because of the +1/+1 counter proliferate. And then you've proliferated twice in combat.
Yep.
That one's
Easy.
bonky.
Yep. Easy A for me, honestly. A, high B, low A. I'd say
Yep,
this one is
for sure.
very sick.
Again, it still feels niche enough to where it's like, I'm not thrilled to put, like, this doesn't just go in every artifact deck. I think the decks that really want it, it's excellent in, but it's not just like an auto include.
Yep. Now, speaking probably to the one that probably will be the controversial one of if this is auto include or not, we're in the era of Magic now. They were actually like directly pushing through. Like we're not have like a 6-year break between swords at this point, right? They picked them back up again with Modern Horizons, and then up until the conclusion of the Supercycle, we got them every couple of years here or so. So our next one we've got coming up to us is from the next Modern Horizons. It's Modern Horizons 2, printed in 2021, the Sword of Hearth and Home.
All right.
With 6 additional prints past its original and averages about $20 to $30 a copy. Protection from green and white, and when the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile up to 1 target creature you own, then search your library for a basic land card, put both cards onto the battlefield under your control, then shuffle.
S tier, dude.
S tier. All right, go ahead and talk about it,
S-tier.
and then, all right, give your S tier, and then I'll give my hot take.
Okay. Oh, you don't like it?
I don't.
Oh my god. Okay, well, hold on. Before I talk about what's good about it, what grade do you give it?
This is for me. This is like a middle of the bar, like Sword of Fire and Ice. This is like a C for me, honestly.
C for you. Okay, let me explain to you why this is S tier. It has excellent evasion. Green and white are the colors that you're going to want to get around creatures because those are going to be the biggest creatures and the ones that are going the widest, which are the two problems you're going to have with getting a creature in. So if we're talking about which of the swords are going to be the easiest ones to trigger based on the evasion that it gives, we have to give that to Hearth and Home because of how excellent that evasion is. Not to mention the protection from things like swords and Path to Exile and all of these other really great targeted removal spells that are in white. So I think, again, I mentioned before, I think white is the best protection for targeted removal. Green, I think, is the best protection as far as evasion goes for creatures. The combination of those two things, you're just getting around basically everything. So we have excellent evasion here. We have pretty good protection. And I mean, the trigger is just literally everything I want to do. It blinks a creature. And I'm sorry, read it back to me one more time. Does it blink something it's something you control, right?
An exile one target creature you own.
You exact. Oh, own. You can get something back from your if someone's like
That is
control
cool.
magic your thing, you can get it back. That's awesome. I didn't even realize that. So I love blinking things. And that ability just scales as the game goes on. Like early on, you might get like a Llanowar Visionary or something where you just get to like draw an extra card or something off of this. And then late in the game, you just get like whatever your bombs are that have ETBs on them. So this scales every point of the game to be excellent. Again, if you play Blink, you understand like how
Yeah.
good some of these things are. Like at max, you can blink like a Urian with this and then blink the rest of your board too. Like that's super, super good. And it just ramps. And the land comes in untapped. And you like, it also is things entering from exile, which I also enjoy doing. So this, maybe this is my version of War and Peace for you, where like, oh my God, this does everything that I want to do. Let alone the fact that it's like off-color blink. So if you're playing like a black deck, this helps get your creatures through all of the piles of creatures in green and white that you would have trouble getting past to begin with. And then it gives you ramp and blink in colors that don't typically get it. So this is S tier for me.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, all that makes perfect sense. And then again, I'm not discrediting in any capacity that this isn't, especially one of the more like it's definitely one of the most playable ones, I'd say. Like I don't know. Maybe this is just me being in personal bias. I would maybe even like at this point off of your argument or whatever, I probably would put this up at like low B, maybe I'd
Sure.
say. But this is definitely not a top tier for me because the way I have lately, and especially ones like this here, the way I evaluate them is I kind of look at them under the circumstance of like, what if you're at your worst possible board state scenarios? They're
Sure.
like, all right, you've got this down and you've only got one other creature down on your board. That's not going to be a creature that you want to blink because if you blink that thing off of the sword, it will be unequipped then from the sword. And yes,
Yeah.
this ramps you and you could re-equip it, but like
No.
that's like
Well,
not
again, the ramp, the blink is a May. So
it
you
is
don't
a May,
have to blink something.
but why
Um,
wouldn't you? Like why would you be playing
Well, yeah,
something
if you've
like
only
that?
got one creature and it's equipped, you're not going to blink anything with it. But again, even then, you get value with the ramp from it, the untapped land that comes into play from it. Like, that's really good.
It is good. I feel it. I don't know. I, I think I'm in a weird state in my commander building expertise nowadays that like I've started to kind of really fall out of favor as far as like Blink is concerned. I've just
Sure.
it's you end up sometimes in board state scenarios where your blink pieces not necessarily just sort of Hearth and Home. You're playing other aspects of your blink deck. You can end up in board state scenarios where blinking something out and in just isn't doing anything for you. Like
Sure.
you have the option to blink something, but it's not up to any good, or you don't have your other pieces down in play. Like blink's a very tough strategy to roll about with
Oh, yeah.
because if you don't have your other compounded pieces that help you utilize the thing that you are blinking in and out, you're just doing game actions for the sake of game actions.
Right.
And also knowing that there are other equipment that fetch you out lands cheaper than what this is able to do. Yes, without the protection colors, obviously. Like, I don't know. I'm very mid on this one personally.
Yeah.
It has never proved useful to me. I'm not a huge fan of it. Yes, even though it is cool that it has the up to target, the fact that it is just a sword that in some situations you're gonna be not even utilizing half of what the card can do, that doesn't
Yeah.
scream amazing to me, honestly.
That's fair. I think what I like about it is that you don't have to do the blink. I think if it said blink target creature, then it would become significantly worse because you would have to blink the thing that it's equipped to. But the fact that you can just slap this on something, you get a free blink if you want to, and you're in the position to. But at minimum, you're going to go fetch a basic land that comes in untapped. It's the fact that it comes in untapped that really keeps me coming back to it. That's like, oh my, that just changes the math of your hand for that turn. Where like, we were talking earlier about comparing the abilities to spells with an equivalent mana value to that. And like, I went to go to compare this to Rampant Growth, but Rampant Growth even puts it in tapped. Like the first thing that I can think of that puts in a basic land from your deck into play untapped costs 3 mana. Like so it's at minimum casting this like 3 mana spell every time that it hits. So you get that mana advantage, plus you're getting the thing that comes in untapped, and like this just doubles your turns. Like this takes you from, let's say you play this on turn 3, you equip it on turn 4. Now you've got 3 mana left over after this, and then because it goes and fetches it, and you've equipped for 2, it put you to 5 mana on turn 4. It puts you to 7 mana on turn 5. Like it doubles what you're doing because it comes in untapped and you get to use it immediately. So I think that's why I'm so high on it. Again, I'm just a blink mage though. You and I have had such a flip because when we were kids, you played Brago,
And I
like
still
Brago
do.
stasis lock against me, and I was
Hmm.
like, I hate this so much. I hate this so much. I became a burn player because I just wanted to deal with it quickly. And now I feel like you and I have flipped where you're doing the Unga Bunga builds, and I'm like, I love blinking all of my like spirited companions out and back in and drawing an extra card.
Yeah.
I think it's the flexibility of that blink just means like whatever I need at the time, if I've got a creature there that does it. Like let's say like I play a ton of like Lauren of the Third Path and Reclamation Sage and things like that. Like this just staples whatever your best ETB is onto the sword. So I don't know, I like it a lot.
All right. On to our next friend. From jumping up to 2023 from Phyrexia, all will be one. The Sword of Forge and Frontier.
Yeah. So, Sword of Forge and Frontier gives the equipped creature +2/+2, protection from red and from green. And then, whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn, and you may play an additional land this turn. I think this one is very good.
Yeah, I also agree. I think this is the one sword recall during this spoiler season. I remember people were very low on this one, but I
Yeah.
believe over the years since then, it has really proven itself as this would be another underrated gem, I'd say.
Also, like, it came at a weird point in the story where they're like, "Oh, I guess we're getting a sword now." And yeah, people were super low on it, but I think I've got this as like an A. This is a
Yeah.
very good card.
I'm on about an A with this one as well. It's been printed 5 times since its original here, but it's actually one of the cheaper ones we're talking about today. It averages about $8 a pop.
Yeah, super super good. Tell me
And
what you
just
like about it,
recent
John.
it just recently rotated from standard as well, by the way. So
Oh
easy pickup.
wow. Oh
Um,
go back and watch that episode and pretend we talked about Forge and Frontier.
no, I mean, like the open endedness of the ability that it offers as well is really really cool here. That you get to smash in with the creature, and you get 2 cards off the top of your library. That is kind of like card draw in the sense of like you've got access to those until the end of your turn. And then the fact that the split line on it as well is that you can play an additional land this turn. That does not have to be a land that you potentially flipped off your top 2 exile. That can just be a land that you have from your hand, or a land that you have access to play out of your graveyard if you're doing something like Crucible or something to that degree.
Yeah.
Like you could just play that additional land in the same vein that you can do with like Explore, that like your extra land doesn't necessarily have to come from the one that you drew that turn. You could just play whatever. And that's great for mana fixing purposes, right? Like the spells that rip you a land off of an X determined number off the top, sometimes that land, while yes, playing an extra land is good for you, it may not be the color fixing that you need immediately, as compared to another land that could be in your hand. Being able to play it off of your extra drop from this can help you get to exactly the mana colors that you need to continue on with your turns.
Yeah. Again, if we're talking about like what spells does it cast as it hits like Ren's Resolve plus Exploration. So it's like a supercharged Explore whenever you hit. And there's just like, I don't know, there's no point in the game where I'm mad about that. Like maybe it's not like the best of the best abilities, but I've also so rarely gotten punished for Impulse Draw. Like, and I play a lot of it. Like as a red mage, I play a ton of Impulse Draw. And there's just at the times when I'm casting those types of spells, or like in my Rocco Street Chef deck, things like that, like it's just like I'm rarely in a position where I'm like losing something permanently to exile that I'm like deeply devastated about. So like I count Impulse Draw as like nearly drawing a card from that. So getting like Impulse Draw 2 off of this is excellent.
This is the kind of sword more than anyone that I think would be like an excellent pickup for any of the decks that is like white X based. You're doing little tokens because let's go back to talk about the protection colors that it has. It's protection from red and green.
Yep.
Not amazing as far as like protection, as far as the removal. These are the colors that are most excellent as far as its protection when it comes to combat evasion stuff, right?
Yes.
Who has the biggest creatures of the game? Red and
Green.
green.
Yep. Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, like, your white deck that wants to play additional lands and get extra cards off the top, but is also only playing 1/1s that can't get through your, like, opponent's, like, Baloth Prime or whatever they're sitting behind or whatever. Bam! This little guy
Yep.
slaps right in,
Smack
gives
'em.
you extra cards, gives you an extra land. It's exactly everything that a white weenies deck wants to do.
Definitely. Yeah, I think there's not much more to talk about this one because we both just agree it's really good.
Excellent. Now probably a weird one, I imagine. The original conclusion to this super cycle, printed in 2023 with March of the Machine, Sword of Once and Future.
Yeah, man. Sort of once in future gives +2/+2 and protection from blue and from black. And then whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, surveil 2, then you may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that spell we put into your graveyard, exile it instead. I think this is a bad one.
This one is really bad.
Yeah, I've got it about a C. So like, I don't think it's like a failing grade for it. But I don't really like it. I think the protection is good. Like you get protection from blue and from black. Like that's protection from control. The evasion is pretty horrible. Like you're just not really, you don't really care about getting around blue or black creatures usually, I would say. So I think that the evasion is completely mid. Protection is pretty mid as well. And I just have a hard time imagining a deck that cares about playing both creatures, equipment, and instants and sorceries.
Right. That's
That
my whole
like,
that's my hold up with this one here is like, in what scenario are you going to be a commander deck that's got instants and sorceries with mana value 2 or less, that you are also playing a creature that wants to go into combat and you want to be flashing back those spells with a card like this anyway? That's so rare. I
unbelievably niche.
I think if you're playing this sword for any of its aspects, you're playing this because it gives protection from black and lets you do surveil. I think everything else about this card is not relevant to what modern commander wants to be doing. And
Mhm.
to me, that's a huge demerit onto the sword itself, that like if half the thing that sword is looking to do is not useful for what you're looking to play, what's your purpose of having it in there then?
For
You know
sure.
what I mean?
I think this is fine in like a Jund deck or something where like you're playing, I don't know, your gambles or whatever, and like you're playing reanimator spells. So like using the graveyard and also having creatures that are attacking. But even then, like I wouldn't play this in my like Slimefoot and Squee deck. It's just a bad card, I think. But again, the evasion is decent. The protection is good because pro black. And the Surveil 2 is not negligible. Like I count Surveil 2 as like 3/4 of drawing a card. Like it's never going to be a full draw card. Once we get into like Surveil 3 is where I'm like, yeah, that's about equivalent to drawing a card as far as like value goes. But Surveil 2 is like nearly there. So you're like almost getting a card draw. You have this unbelievably conditional Snapcaster Mage attached to it,
Yeah.
with like some
And
decent colors that it has protection from.
yeah, not to discredit the kind of cool thing that this card could do. Like there was this really fun zombie from War of the Spark that was like Dread Horde Arcanist that worked in a very similar way as well.
Yeah.
This kind of sword is very neat with the no cost instants and sorceries, those suspend ones that do like the
Oh,
really
yeah,
really
you just get, like,
powerful thing.
ancestral visions for
Yeah.
free.
Ancestral Visions, or the Warp Worldy one, or the Enchantment Recursion one, because again, like we had talked about, all these swords are colorless. So this
Yeah,
sort of aspect of milling some cards and casting something cheap for free, like you could do this with white, you could do this with green. Heck, I
definitely.
imagine snapping back at Rampant Growth is probably fine. I
Pretty good.
imagine.
Actually, yeah, maybe this is just, like, decent in a green deck. Um, Yeah, I don't know. Let us know in the comments below if you've got like a deck that this is really good in, but I'm sitting at about a C for it. I think that there's some potential for it, perhaps once or maybe in the future. But as I'm sitting right now, I think it's a mid card.
Nah, I'm at about a D as well. I'm definitely lower than you. I just think
Yes,
there is not good use for a card like this one, I'm afraid.
for sure. And now
And
we're on to
so,
the strangest of them.
yeah, so technically, Sword of Once and Future finished the complete super cycle in the sense of the swords that gave protection from specific colors. All 10 guild sets were all represented with the conclusion of that one there. However, Outlaws of Thunder Junction continues to be a menace to society with all the cards that were printed in big score. And one of those from 2024, the Sword of Wealth and Power.
Dude, this one's really cool, actually.
This
So,
this one is sick. Yeah, go
Sword of
for it.
Wealth and Power gives equipped creature +2/+2 and protection from instants and sorceries. This is our first
Wow.
one that gives us protection from card types. And then whenever an equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. And then when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Rips,
Um,
dude. This
so
thing is slaps.
Yeah, it staples like Strike It Rich and Fork onto a card. Now, I will say, major downside of this, when we start talking about protection from card types rather than colors, this gives you 0 evasion. Whereas the other
Fair.
ones allow you to sneak through creatures, this one will not. So I would say you need to be playing this in a deck with creatures that already have evasion on it. The +2/+2 bonus is really nice. But man, all of those abilities hit hard. Like you know me, I love making a treasure. If there's
Right.
one thing that I'm playing this game for, it's to make treasures. So like I love that to begin with. And then getting a fork stapled onto it of like your next instant or sorcery spell gets doubled. Now, granted, we're in the same position as Sword of Once and Future, where it's like you're
Uh-huh.
now playing a deck that has creatures, equipments, and instants and sorceries in it with regularity. So I think that the fork is the least relevant ability type there. I think protection from instants and sorceries is cracked. That is
That's
so
so good, dude,
good.
right? Like, what's one of those what's that strongest Emrakul that is allowed to be played in the game,
Yeah.
right? The promised end, that thing just
Yes.
naturally coming with protection from instants and sorceries. Like,
Right.
that means not a single piece of spot removal can target the thing that's
Totally.
equipped onto this, right?
You still get
All
got by board wipes outside
Mhm.
of like the damage based ones. But that again, you're so safe from everything else.
It's great. Yeah, this is the sword. I definitely feel like that. Like, if you want a commander or a specific creature to have the like outside of the greatest protection that we already use on equipments, things like your sword, no, your swords, the Swiftfoot boots and lightning greaves and darksteel plates and champions helms and things like that or whatever. Like, if you've got a creature that you want to make sure stays safe during most game scenarios, Sword of Wealth and Power can basically really be seen as that, the most protection heavy sword that also comes with a bonus of, hey, if you can get that creature in, you get a treasure and a potential copy of a spell that you cast. Not
Super
restricted
good.
on its mana value either, by the way. You see that there? That
Yeah.
unlike the Sword of Once and Future, you can cast any instant or sorcery
Yes.
and make a copy.
You can cast Time Warp and take 2 extra turns. That's what I want to do, dude. As I was reading through this, so I like forgot that sort of Wealth and Power existed. And I've been building this Galazeth Prismari deck, which wants to be playing artifacts and casting instants and sorceries. As I was reading, I was like, this does everything I want it to do. Not only can Galazeth Prismari tap the sword to add a mana for an instant and sorcery, it just makes a treasure which can do the same thing, and then you double up on whatever your biggest instant or sorcery that you're going to cast after this is, all while giving your commander protection from spot removal. Like, it's perfect. This is a perfect card in that deck. I still think that it's niche, so I'm rating this as a B. But man, it's so perfect in the decks that want it. I just can't get over how insane that protection is. I'm fine with it giving 0 evasion because like no instants, no sorceries. That's it. You're so
Good
protected.
luck.
I love
Good
it.
luck getting it. Yeah, I've got about an A. I want to say,
Yeah.
like, I'm like you. That pro instance, pro sorcery is just whack crack. And if you're slapping that onto something that is naturally evasive anyway, just all this extra compounded value. Like doesn't really matter what kind of deck you're playing. Every deck likely has some kind of instant or sorcery that you're playing as well. So
Yeah.
there is use to be had across the entirety of this card. So
Agreed.
easy A rank.
But that brings us to the conclusion of our episode today. I hope
Yeah.
you enjoyed. We don't do a ton of these ranking episodes, but if you want to see more of those, let us know because I think that these are incredibly fun. And I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to this. John, do you want to let the good people know where they can reach us if they would so please?
If you'd like to come tell me about how I'm dead wrong about Sword of War and Peace, you can come meet us over on our Discord channel. We're always having conversation about all things Magic. We've got a brewery tab, we do memes, we've got set up game nights, everything cool that you would want to talk about. Come hang out with us over there, completely free. We don't want your money. We just want you to hang out with us because we love you.
Agreed. You can also reach us in the comments down below, as mentioned. And if you would like to find us on a social media, you can get us on Blue Sky. That is at MTG Thoughtcast or at Joseph-Thoughtcast or at John-Thoughtcast. And then lastly, if you've got none of those things and you just want to say, hey, you can email us at mtgthoughtcast@gmail.com. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed. We'll see you next time here on the MTG Thoughtcast. This is us signing off.